Well, first of all, what's good about it? I mean, industrial tourism has brought us to this point. It's grown from 100 to 800 million trips a year. It's created phenomenal employment. It's helped transfer wealth from wealthy countries to poor countries. It's lifted people out of poverty. It's not all bad. The problem is, as I said before, it's just not sustainable the way it's currently being practiced. We've grown so far, and now we're starting to see diminishing returns. And the problem for that is we haven't really added up all of the net costs associated with tourism. So we're now going to have to face paying a cost for carbon production, for example. Tourism is a heavy use of water. It displaces people from some beautiful places that they may have called home for thousands of years, but which our Western world seems to think is beautiful real estate as a playground. It has a tendency to make an awful lot of places that were different into places that look a lot alike, so that it sort of homogenizes places. And the other main problem with the industrial model is that it literally turns everything it touches into a commodity. And that's because its fundamental principles are based on a way of looking at the world as an object. So customers become objects, everyone becomes an object. And that also then starts to cheapen what you're selling. Now, one of the things we've done in tourism is that when things are going well, when the tide is coming in and we're growing, what do? We open another hotel, we expand. Then we need another runway extension, another motorway extension. And then we get all kind of confident, and then something happens because tourism is so vulnerable. Something like 90% of all traffic in tourism is determined by currency exchange rates between the source country and the receiving country, and the economic vitality of the source country. Or if there's an external event like a terrorist attack or an epidemic or a natural disaster, all of these things can suddenly cause the demand for tourism to go through the floor. And none of the operators in tourism have any real control over it. So that leads to a sort of boom and bust cycle, and that causes a lot of hardship. It's not necessarily very efficient, and as I say, it's almost impossible to innovate when you're sitting on a bucking bronco. The other major challenge, of course, is that when you're in a difficult time, you drop your prices. And so what we have is an industry that has always responded to trouble by price cutting. And that has meant there's an enormous competition on the basis of price. And that means cost cutting, that leads to standardization, automation, all kinds of ways of reducing your cost to maintain that margin. So it has a compound effect over time. And then the only way you can actually generate any return, any income, is to grow volume. And that's why all destinations focus on, has tourism grown this year? Because it's now a volume-based industry. So all of these things are coming together now to show that we've got to come up with a viable alternative to something that's literally running us into the ground.